variable a value, it assigns the reference in the starting. If you see this code, are you able to see it?
Yeah.
So initially it has been assigned as int, and if you assign y another variable to x, both of them will refer to the same value. So it does not create additional reference in the memory in general. But if you change change the value of x, then they are not the same. And all of the variables which we declare actually get allocated in the stack, and the values for the variables are assigned in the heap. And if you delete a particular variable, then you actually get this error, because there is no reference to the given value, because Python has a automated garbage collector, which if once there is no reference being assigned, then it automatically cleans it up. So this is the garbage collector package GC, and if you see it, if you can just run it, so you will see that it has a threshold of 700, 10, and 10. So whenever we create any variable in the stack, it actually sets a threshold. So you can say each of the memory block in the stack is like a page. So where it actually sets the threshold, and once this is reached, and if it is not being referenced, then it actually gets again cleaned up by the garbage collector. And we can use other methods like set threshold to try to optimize the code execution, but generally this is not recommended. So that's what I could infer so far. It is basically built on the same as what you have in C. So you have calloc, malloc, and realloc, but those are not recommended by the documentation.
Okay, so basically
that's what I could.
Okay, so few points here, like what Varga just identified. We are saying every time we are declaring variables, the variables names are basically being stored there in the stack memory, and the values you are assigning to those variables, these are part of your heap memory. And if you see, like if you're assigning same value with multiple variables, it's not actually occupying like 2 times memory, rather it's creating the value is available in the heap and both the variables are pointing to the same value, right? So that's one thing. And yeah, that's one thing. And you saw like garbage collector is there, it automatically garbage collects or flush out the memory allocated to variables which are no more used. And yeah, so these are a couple of points. And yeah, and we generally don't tweak the default settings for the GC garbage collector. We keep it as it is, and deleting a variable is basically what we have discussed. A is not defined. So what is this? Like, yeah, can you just reiterate this delete variable name?
So initially it is allocating memory block, and then if you run delete and then again try to print it, it won't be able to, because that reference has been removed.
Okay, correct. So optionally you can delete a variable. So if you want to manually dereference a particular variable, you can call del and the variable name. And later if you try to again refer the variable what you have deleted, you will get error because you have already deleted it, right? So that's a couple of points. Along with that, like how it basically uses different blocks and all. So did you get a chance to go through that?
I tried to go through it, but it was a little bit challenging because
very high level means I don't want to go.
Yeah.
Very high level. Yeah, please go ahead.
So generally it is recommended in the Python documentation that the garbage collector be either synchronized like a time wise, so that it automatically cleans up, so that it leads to faster execution of the code, or you try to do threshold. But the second method which we did as of now, which I'm showing you in the 12th line, it is not recommended. So That was what I could get. And there was something with related to global interpreter log. I was going through it, but I could not wrap my head around it. Just if I get some more time, I will definitely do the other aspect as well, the dynamic memory allocation.
For dynamic memory allocation, let's not go into that deeper. So only
Okay.
how it creates different blocks and pull up blocks, and how it assigns and how it flush out different blocks. So those high level thing also you can go through that. And
Okay.
maybe I think we have also asked Harsha for that. I think she'll be joining late. So we'll discuss that once she joins. Okay, apart from that, any other assignments? I think I've also asked to compare the memory management between Scala and Python. Anybody get a chance to go through that?
I did not get a chance, so maybe just let me make a note of it as well. Thank you. Sorry, Ian, as well.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so let's go through today's part. So can you just open PyCharm? So today's agenda is basically to go through Pandas data frame, which is one of the very popular data abstraction in Python world. So all like Spark data frame and all, you can say these are motivated from this Python pandas data frame. Okay, so can you just open that?
Yeah, I'm just opening it.
Mhm.
1 minute.
Okay, so pandas data frame is basically, it's not part of your core Python library. Rather, it is a separate module, separate library we have to install. So you have to basically install pip inst. You have to execute the command pip install pandas. So it should install that. This is the latest version available for your Python compiler. And then basically you can relate pandas data frame as with your relational database tables. Just like relational database tables have different columns and different rows, different columns are of different types and different rows are there like that. And then different rows are there. And then later you can also so exactly same as data here also data frame is also having similar concept. You can read a file like any CSV file, like comma delimited file or Parquet files, and all those will see in the data frame Spark data frame sessions. But um, pandas also support like Parquet files and all. So here what we are saying, when you are reading a delimited file CSV and all, so it has multiple types of columns, right? Say it's a transaction data or sales data having, say, transaction ID, customer ID, sales amount, product ID, product count. So all these different columns will be there. Or if it's a transaction data, maybe customer ID or account number, then transaction amount, date, and transaction description or category. Like those different columns will be there. So we can read whole data as a data frame. It's a in-memory two-dimensional table, you can say, but it's what you call it, standalone. So pandas data frame is basically, you can say it's a standalone two-dimensional in-memory table. Okay, so where each column can be of different type and each rows are nothing but different instances of that particular schema. Okay, so these are a couple of points, and so let's go through a couple of examples. So can you just increase the font if it is possible? Oh, fine. Okay.
Is it okay?
Yeah, it should be fine. So here in the left-hand side, you can see there is a pandas data frame module is there. So the basics is basically, you can see here we have this file. So before that, we have to install pandas data frame. So can you install pandas data frame there? Can you go to terminal and just install pip3? Can you just execute pip3 pandas pip3, no space, pip3 space install space pandas.
I
Yeah.
think so. I think so. If you could just run the first line. I think so. It is already in.
Okay, already
No.
installed. Okay, fine. So people who have not yet installed, so you can try either pip install pandas or pip install pandas, both should work. Okay, so here what we have done in the line number 1, we imported this third-party libraries. Okay, it's pretty much same as you can import the existing modules in your file. So optionally you can give a alias name also. So you can say import pandas. Then when you try to access its functionality, say you want to read the CSV file as a data frame, you can say pandas.read CSV. If you don't want to type this bigger name, you can give it alias name. So import pandas as PD, and then you can say pd.read CSV, and you can provide a path. Okay, you can provide a path and you can read that as a data frame. So can you provide the correct path for this create transaction.csv in your computer? It should be there in the RDD data folder. There only, inside there only. Just copy the URL. Copy the URL. Here. Just, can you leave the control? So if you go here, no, in the header. Oh God, in the browse section, no. 1 second. You have to use, yeah, I think that should be fine. But okay, can you execute this again and see? But last time, how did it run here? No, last time you ran some different example.
Okay, now we are here.
No, not there, not there. So you can see their iterations is selected, right? You can't use that. So here you have to right click on this file and run. No, not there, not even there. Wait. Come to the editor where this code has been written. So there, just right click. No, not even there. Oh God, are you using first time like this editor?
Yeah.
So you can see what it is saying. File this. So in Windows, like it will not accept this path. You have to use double slash, or yeah, I think you can use double slash.
Still giving the same error.
Let's see. Why it is taking this long time?
I think file extension also need to be given CSV.
Okay. This extension has been given. Okay.
Not getting the directory, from where we are picking the transaction file.
This is what you're seeing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically what we are doing here, so we are reading this file. So we are reading a CSV file. So pandas library has functions like read CSV, read Parquet, like that. So you can read that delimited file. Okay, it should be having a proper structure. If you try to read some junk data, it will fail. Suppose some paragraph kind of data is there and you are reading it, so it will not be able to interpret the schema of that. Okay, so transaction df equal to pd dot read CSV, and you specified a create transaction file, and it's creating a data frame out of it. Okay, this transaction df is a 2-dimensional table. Okay, so you are saying print this, and you can optionally print the data type also.
So that what change did you make in the code? It's still not working for me.
No, we didn't do any change. No, we simply just this slash we mentioned double slash. That's it. Because in Windows, it asks for the path in that way, double slash separation for the folders, or single forward slash. You can use anything. Okay, so that's there. So here basically we are specifying the data type is basically it should be pandas data frame. It should show. Okay, it's saying class is pandas.core.frame.dataframe. This is the full module name or path name of this particular class, and inside the data frame is there. Okay, so then basically that to basically check the dimension, since it's a 2-dimensional table, we are saying like it's a in-memory 2-dimensional table, so it has having certain number of columns and certain number of rows, so that in short we call it as dimension of a data frame, right? So for dimension, we have here the function called the attribute called shape. Okay, data frame.shape. Shape is an attribute to get the dimension of that particular table. So before that, we just called print transaction df. We generally avoid directly calling print data frame because it will print the entire data frame in the console. So here you can see it is having 4 columns: account number, amount, date, category. Okay, you remember in the RDD examples we were like working on that. But here there in RDD, the records are not indexed, but here you can see the records are indexed. Obviously, because it's a standalone system, it's a standalone collection or standalone data structure. So it can index it, but there in RDD, the data is scattered across multiple computers. So that's why there is no index concept there. But here you can see all these records are having an index, and it's zero-based indexing. Okay, so there are 49 records, I think. So you can see it's 0 up to 48. Okay, that's how basically the data is all about. And then you said dimension, and you are saying that data frame dot shape. Shape is an attribute of data frame. Okay, so it's saying 49,4. Okay, so then basically you are saying schema of that particular data. So you're saying transaction df.info. Okay, transaction df.info, and you are so verb was equal to true, so that it's printing every other information it can show. So you can see when you are calling info, it's printing, it's saying the data type of this particular object is pandas core frame data frame, and then range index, it's saying 49 entries, means the number of rows are 49 and indexes are 0 to 48. Data columns, it's saying 4 columns. Okay, account number, amount, date, category. Okay, it's showing all are not null because all columns, all records are having value filled in it. Then we can see object, float. The data types are basically, so amount is decimal value, so it's able to recognize its float 64. Okay, and other strings are basically, you can see it's represented as normal object only. Okay, that's how basically it identifies the schema of a given data, and that's how it basically identifies the schema of this.
So Sid, one question.
Yeah, please.
Actually, so I just opened this CRAD underscore transaction.csv file.
Mhm.
All I can see is that there is only one column, and all the data is only in that one column. And then there's a tilde symbol in between the names. So how we see here, we just printed the
No, you have to
transaction.
specify the delimiter, and you can see the second parameter is separator. If you don't
Okay,
pass anything,
okay.
it automatically picks up comma as the delimiter. But here the second parameter is the separator or the delimiter, you can say. So basis that it reads the data. It doesn't do any magic. So you have to say it like what it is, right? So can you control and hover this? Okay, if you just control and hover, no, it shows all this path. Okay, so variable read CSV infer type union something like this, and you can see it should be having whole bunch of parameters. Yeah. So first you are specifying. Oh God. So first it's saying you can see in the first line any within parentheses it's saying file path or buffer. Okay, some other things are mentioned union str path this and all. Then you can see separator scp colon str its data type is string. Then delimiter is basically you are saying optional like delimiter. Delimiter you can also specify that is record separator here. And header is basically if you want to basically read the data with a custom header name, you don't want to rely on the by default header reads true when that should be attribute header colon bool and that should be of type true. And optionally you can specify a list of string as header so that when you read the data and it will assign that values as the header. Then you can see there are 10-20 parameters are there. So basis your data, you can have different parameters set there. Float precisions, then memory map, whole bunch of parameters are there. Okay, so you can basically play around with that. Basis the data you are using, you can see like if the data is having header or not header, it's having a delimiter, or what is the delimiter there. Okay, record delimiter, field delimiter, everything you can specify here and you can read the data. Okay, so it's not anything hidden. You can, if you have installed that library, you can hover, you can, if you mention like say, if you type a phrase and then space and just type like control space, then it will show you the suggestions, like what are the parameters you can pass and all these things. Okay, so these things you can use, you can get if you're using this editors. Okay, this IDs like PyCharm. Okay, only thing you just need to install all libraries, pip install that library, and then when you start using it, so it'll recommend you like what are the different functions are available. You can see the moment I'm mentioning dot, it's showing all these functions are there. Okay, all these functions are there. You can make use of that. Okay, that is there. So then we just discussed about the SEP. SEP is giving dimension, and info is a very high level function. It gives all these informations like number of rows, columns, and the data types and the total memory it has used. Okay, so it's saying data types also, D types, 1 float variable and 3 object variable. Okay, so that's there. And yeah, a couple of other informations that it's printing. And sometimes you also need to access only the columns, or you want to rename the columns of a given data frame. So you can see that data frame dot columns is an attribute to get all these columns of a given data frame. So you can see it's returning a list of all columns. Okay, so in the exact same index in the same sequence. First column account number, then amount, date, category, and all this. Okay, and this entire list is a type object. Okay, so that's how basically it prints it in the console. And then basically you can see, so just like the first line number 6, when you printed the data frame, it was showing all these 49 records, but optionally you can specify like how many columns and how many records you want to print when you are calling when you are basically printing a data frame. Okay, that's also there. Like maybe when you are working on real-time projects, the data is having thousands or lakhs of hundreds of thousands of records are there. So when you print them, it will show everything in the console and you'll not be able to get anything, right? It will just keep on printing and you have to scroll up, scroll down to see the content, right? So that's why optionally you can treat it like the rdd.take function. In rdd.take, what you do, in rdd.take, you specify a certain number of columns, and basis that you specify like how many records you want to see in the console, right? So that you can specify here using these attributes, right? So that is there. And but again, it's not mandatory, it not force you. So if you're mentioning, so there also you remember, like if you call, say, take 20, but the data is uh, so basically you can think of like in this way, like if the data is having only 10 columns and you're saying take 20, so it will never complain, right? It will only show, it will give you only those 10 records. Okay, so similarly here basically it's basis your what, basis your the width of your monitor and width of your, not just monitor, rather the console or the terminal what you have opened. So basis its configuration, it will show those many records. Okay, even if you say like if you set like 100 records you want to see when you print a data frame, it will not show all 100 records, it will see the configuration of your console or the terminal basis that it will show. Okay, that's there. So that's there. uh, that's there. So here basically what we have, we have done exactly that way. We have specified the total number of columns I want to show is 420. Then I am printing line number 20. Line number 19, I'm saying credit transaction data, and I'm saying print transaction data frame. So here you can see it's printing in this way. It's printing in this way, like, so 0, 1, 2, 3 for first 5 records, then some dot dot, and then the last 5 records, 10 records, it is printing in this way. Okay, and 4 columns it is printing because you have 4 columns. Okay, so suppose you have 20 columns, you can say like I want to see only 6 columns or 7 columns, that also you can do. Okay, that is basically kind of global configurations for one particular session. Once you execute this, but same configuration will not work if you execute another Python file. Okay, so that's there. So here basically you are printing, it's printing 10 records only. And next is, so head and tail functions are there. Okay, so just like in RDD, there is no head and tail, you saw. Same as data frame also doesn't have head and tail, but pandas data frame having this head and tail function. So not 10 record, you can say few records. It's as like here in pandas data frame, all are like basis your terminal configurations. You can basically print few records as the header, like 5 to 10 records it will show. So here you can see like it is showing first 5 records when you are calling head transaction data frame dot head. So it's printing all these columns, and you can see first 5 records it's printing. And similarly the last 5 records, if you're calling tail function, 44, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, last 5 records is printing. So very basic examples. You read a CSV file. CSV file means we always assume that data is a structured data. Maybe you have extracted some relational database table, or you have manually created that file, and you want to read that as a in-memory 2-dimensional table. So then you can use pandas data frame. If you use core Python library to read this data as a structured manner, so what's the right data abstraction? What the right data type you feel you should have used? So given that you have 4 columns, okay, 4 attributes: account number, amount, date, category, and you want to create a single variable to store all 4 columns and all 49 records. What data structure you would have like used in core Python? Any guess? Anybody?
Dictionary.
Exactly. Always used to dictionary. So dictionary is a collection of key value pairs. You could have like created 4 keys, that is account number, amount, date, category, and against each attribute you would have like assigned a list of values. Okay, account number colon list of these values like 987 CBA 321 456 DA. Like that you would have like assigned all these values there in the exact same sequence. Then again second key is amount, and you assign a list against that, like all values to 81 42 like that. So that's basically the ideal structure you would have like followed, right? But here basically if you are using pandas data frame, everything is handled inherently. We don't have to write any extra code, you just have to make a very high level API call. Okay, that's basically the intent of using different libraries. So you can think of in this way: Spark is creating a distributed RDD, distributed collection. You can also create some code and you can write the logic to read data, and it's distributed across multiple computers. So you can put all this hard work, like you can do all this hard work, put a lot of effort, and basically uh, implement all this multi-threading, networking, and all, create a distributed collection. Or else, like, we don't want to do that, rather somebody has already done that for us, let's use that library, isn't it? So that's basically the funda. So the core objective of using libraries is, so some rudimentary functions or day-to-day basis, the functions or the functionalities what we use, it has been already implemented and we can make use of that. Okay, that's the example of this pandas data frame and all. Okay, so whenever you are doing a lot of data analytics, okay, so sometimes you'll see, so data engineering roles comes with like a Python developer. So there basically you should be having pandas data frame, numpy, and those kind of libraries in your profile, so that you can work closely with the data science team and prepare the backend data for them. Okay, or like sometimes like data engineering with big data, then you should be knowing PySpark and all these things. Okay, exactly the same things what you're doing using pandas data frame, we will be seeing these examples there in Spark data frame, but that is way more advanced than this. There you have this, you don't have any memory issue, you can read millions or billions of records as a single data frame because it's distributed in nature. And the functionalities and the APIs also, you'll see little more readable in comparison to pandas data frame. Okay, so post that, let's see some other examples of filtering, how to apply filter. Okay, here basically you can see I've created a data frame. Just like what we discussed previously, we have a dictionary having key value pairs. First name is Rajesh, Latesh, Sunit. Last name is their surnames. Email IDs are there. Okay, so this is a core Python collection available, or dictionary available to you, and you want to convert that to a data frame. So you can also do that. So you can say pandas dot data frame, and you can pass that particular dictionary into that. Okay, so it will create a data frame out of it, and that will be having 3 columns: first name, last name, email, and the values like that. Okay, so then you can basically print it also, print df. Okay, so then basically let's see like how, so there should be some ways to filter the data, like in RDBMS, these are the common functionalities you do. So what are the common functionalities you do in RDBMS? Tables. You read a table and you can specify certain number of columns. Projection, you can do, select say employee ID, department ID from table, that's called projection. You are selecting only a handful of columns. Then you are filtering, say select star from table where department equal to IT. Okay, or you say select count star where department ID, department equal to IT. Or you can apply aggregations. You can say you want to find out the total salary, maximum salary, minimum salary in each department. So you can say select department ID, comma, min of salary, max of salary, average of salary from that table name, then group by department ID. Like that, all these functionalities we do, like as part of our data analytics activities, you do a whole bunch of data wrangling, right? So exactly same thing, you can also do it using pandas data frame in Python. Okay, so you just read this data. Okay, you are printing it, so it's printing all this. So it has 3 records. Okay, 3 records and 3 columns. So you can see first name, last name, email, and it's printing all these values. Okay, Rajesh Singh at dsm.com, like that. We have these 3 attributes, and now you are saying print df within square bracket, you are specifying a column equal to ready. So what it will do, no? So this is basically the syntax to access a particular column from a given data frame. df within square bracket, you can say last name equal to ready. Optionally, you can also say in this way. Df dot last name. Df dot last name, that should also work. Okay, that's how basically you can access the columns of a given data frame. Okay, so you can see it's printing, it's basically giving a column, okay, having only Boolean values. Okay, it's basically giving all these Boolean values. Okay, so that is there. So you can see for the first one, surname is Singh, last two, second and third is ready. So you can see it's giving true for the last two, false for the first record. Okay, same thing we used for the other syntax, like the data frame dot column name, that's also giving you the same output exactly. Okay, so yeah, it's basically mentioning the name of this column is last name and data type is bool. Okay, like that. That's how basically you can basically check. So maybe you want to say you want to like multiple analytics you can do on that. Say for example, you have a monthly sales data for a given year. Okay, and you want to see like you want to basically see like for how many months, for which are the months you have made transactions more than 10 lakhs, and for which are the months you have made less than 10 lakhs. You can do that kind of and you, since you have only 10-12 columns, sorry, 10-12 records, you can basically put this logic, say df of total amount greater than equal to 10 lakhs. So it will show you true false, so that you can get like for which months you have made revenue more than 10 lakhs and for which month less than that. Okay, so these are kind of very handy functions we do use always, like while writing some programs. Okay, so that is there. And but here basically you saw, so this is if you just comparing it with SQL, so you would have like written the SQL query in this way. How? In SQL query you must have written in this way.
Select star from table where last name equals to like ready.
Exactly. Select no, I think case when
Yes.
last name
Equal to ready.
equal to ready from the table name CPF.
Okay.
Like you would have like written. So I think we have to end this, right?
No, this is, you have to put a where clause.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a where clause. So the from will come first. Select column names, then from, then where.
Yeah, I think so. That's
Case
what
statement you'll use when you want to create an alias of an outcome.
It's not otherwise. Case statement, when you use it, then you need to give the what is the thing you need to print.
Exactly. We don't need case when we can directly use this.
Yeah,
Expression.
that's what I'm saying. So you can give column name or star from the table name where last name equals to ready.
No,
yeah.
the condition is not there. We are not restricting the columns. No, restricting the records. No, we are.
Yeah, then you can use the decode.
Sorry.
Select
What?
decode. Select the decode of last name, comma ready.
No, I think this is the query only. Like for example, you have table of names say people, and here basically you can see what's the output you are getting. You are only getting false, true, true. Like you have 3 records and you are getting 3 values: false, true, false. Sorry, false, true, true. If you are saying like say select last name equal to last name equal to ready, so this particular expression will be evaluated as true or false, isn't it? This particular expression will be result into true and false from these people. Try that. I think that's the correct SQL only. So just like you mentioned, select star from people, so it will give you all columns. So you mentioned select star comma then salary into 10% as bonus from people, from employee, like that. Here we are not selecting all columns, rather we are selecting this expression. So in the select clause, you can optionally specify expressions also. So you're saying last name equal to ready. So here is basically giving you it's giving you true or false basis the expression return value, isn't it? Or anybody having any other opinion?
I have one question, like, so in real world scenario, where do we use pandas? Because all these things become very simple when you put the data in any RDBMS and
But
you
that's
write
not,
queries.
no, you should be having data there in RDBMS. But if you don't have RDBMS, then what? RDBMS means you have to install a database and all. You have to do all this. So while working on analytics, multiple people are working on the same project, doing multiple analytics. You do keep on creating different tables and fill the database. Then somebody has to clean it and all these things you have to do, right? Here you're doing the analytics directly right by writing code. And SQL has always limitations, right? SQL is the whole world of SQL is lies between this select, having, where, group by, those kind of clause. But here in programming world, you have whole bunch of other things. So there are many scenarios. Like in RDBMS, in order to query it, the data should be there in the table. It should be available as tables. But here in pandas, here in Python programming, suppose you don't have data, you can write a code to read data from some database and then create a pandas data frame out of it and then do some analytics. Say the data is not available in some database, rather it is available in some SFTP folder, some shared directory. You can write a Python code, read that data from a SFTP folder, then convert it to a pandas data frame. Then you can do some analytics on that. So programming is vast. Okay, so it's not just limited to SQL world, where you should bring the data first to the SQL database server as a table or view, and then you can apply some analytics or some queries, some analysis on that, isn't it? So that's the difference. So your whole world is not just limited to this a handful of constructs like select, where, from, group by, having. Here you have thousands of keywords, and optionally you can use libraries, and you may get whole varieties of libraries and functionalities to play around with the data. Because when you are working on data analytics, there can be different kind of analytics to be done. Okay, and here it is pretty easy, and it's doable. But in RDBMS, it's not doable at all. Like, so you should first onboard all data to that database server, which sometimes cannot be possible. Even though it's possible, it requires significant amount of effort. There can be many such examples you can just explore around. So of course, like for data analytics, you can do everything on RDBMS. You can write any, if you're expert in SQL, you can write any kind of query to do any data analytics. But the first point is you should bring the data to that database server first, isn't it? But here there is no such restriction. You can pull data from any systems, right? And then you can do any analysis on that. Okay, so yeah, the reason why I'm comparing, because we are into data engineering. So for the same thing, we should know what are the different solutions available and how we would have like done that if we didn't use data frame, rather we use SQL or vice versa, like that. Okay, so that's there. So you have written some other queries. I have no clue. Select last one as bit as expression one from people, where last name equal to Reddy.
As what somebody else was also saying, cast one as bit means if it is true, then if it is true, it will always come as one. So for Boolean evaluation in SQL, that's what I think. So the other person was actually saying it, cast one as a bit, if I'm not
But
wrong.
it will not only select
But always
records.
give you the ready, na? Not give
It
you.
will only give you always ready, but we
Yeah.
want all records.
You are doing right, Siddharth. Just use a case. When the condition is met, then return 1 as return 0. It will give you the true and false.
Yeah.
Anybody have any SQL? You can just take this as an assignment. Okay. I think like case when is not required, because case when is required when you want to. I mean, you can use case when, but
Okay,
it's not
case,
required.
you definitely get this with the case.
We can get it through anything.
Yeah.
Exactly. We can
Yeah.
Case,
Add the
decode,
condition in case.
we have multiple ways.
Yeah.
But
When you're doing
the
conditional, I think when you're doing conditional filtering on a particular column, that's where case comes in.
Yeah.
But the first comment and the select statement will not work. Select last name equal to ready from people. That won't give the result.
I also thought this won't work. Maybe like I
Yeah,
come from
actually
SQL
that
Server
won't.
background, but I doubted this.
Anybody having any SQL database, you can give it a try. I think double equal to or single equal to, it should work.
Single equal to, it will work.
Single equal to or double equal to, that should work. Because my point is, just like somebody saying, I have a salary column, I want to calculate bonus. So how do you write it? You mention select star, comma, then salary into 0.01, sorry, 0.1, that is 10%, as as salary, sorry, as bonus. So means basically you are writing an expression to derive a column. So this is basically where I'm writing an expression saying last name equal to Reddy. So this expression will evaluate as true or false. So I want that only. I want only result having whole bunch of true and false. That's the whole objective I was just trying to write in that way. But yeah, you can just give it a try. Any database you are using, say MySQL and all this, and you can give it a try. Okay. So I'm not saying like anybody wrong or like I may be wrong also. Like I'm saying you can, maybe you are correct. Like we should have like used case when last name equal to Reddy, then true, otherwise false, and from people. That also would have like written, but I felt like, yeah, is it really required? So that's why I just kept it like that. Maybe you're correct. We have to use case when, then only it should work.
So, the simple one is a decode. Decode last name, comma Reddy, comma T. There is 1, comma 0. If it is the last name is Reddy, then it will show the 1 or Red. If not, it will show the 0. That is the RP syntax.
Oh, you're talking about this 0 1. 0 1 is basically here in the output. These
Not
are
the 0 1. Just I'm just 1 is 1. I'm representing 1 for the true and 0 for the false.
Because it work like a case, but in a short term, in a short way. So you can first you can give the conditions column, and then you can the if and else result.
okay.
If it is
So
match, then give true. If doesn't match, then give
false. Right. Yeah. So that's the assignment, like for both like Adim, Bodhisatya and all. So you just write a SQL query. I'm pretty sure like you're working on some projects. Just take any table and just execute a query and ping us in the group, like post the session. Okay, which like whether this line number 14 and 15 which is working or anything which is working. Okay, so let's go to the next example. So this is basically we are only projecting a single column. That is the result of this expression evaluation. We are saying if name equal to Reddy, then only show that. But in real time, like you might be having multiple scenarios. Maybe you're dealing with a sales data and you're doing some analytics, and you want to just discard all records where transaction amount is in negative or 0. Okay, maybe some bad transactions and you have been asked to discard those records. So you should be able to do that, right? So they're basically what you write. Suppose somebody is saying you have a sales data and just filter out all records where transaction amount is less than equal to 0. So you would have like written select star from that sales where amount is greater than equal to 0. That means you are keeping only records where amount is greater than 0, and you are so you have to basically give like amount greater than 0. So here also there should be a way, right? Here also there should be a way. So here what we are doing, we are saying df, okay, line number 17, if you just observe, okay, line number 16, we are saying filtering where last name is equal to Reddy. So here you have mentioned df within square bracket, you are mentioning a Boolean expression. Okay, if you just observe carefully, in line number 17, you have mentioned df within square bracket. You are basically specifying a Boolean condition. Okay, that Boolean condition should give you a list of a series of values, series of true and false, not like a single true. Okay, so that's what. So you have mentioned, that's why intentionally what we have created earlier, we have mentioned df last name double equal to Reddy. So exactly same condition I just copied. Okay, exactly same condition I just copied, and I put it inside this df square bracket. So what it will do, it will give you all records where this highlighted expression returns true. So here you can see the highlighted expression returns true for the last 2 records. Okay, for the last 2 records you are getting true. Okay, first record you are not. So that's why. So this is basically the way we apply filter there in the pandas data frame. Okay, here you can see the result is you are getting only 2 records, Latesh Reddy, Sumit Reddy, and you are not getting the first record. Okay, so that sing record you are not getting. So that's the logic there. Okay, so every time you want to apply a filter, you have to pass the filter logic inside df square bracket. Okay, that's basically horizontal filtering. It's pretty much same as a where clause inside your select query. So select this where from this table name where this filter condition. Getting a point. So you have to write the Boolean expression which returns a series of true and false inside that df square bracket. Okay. Then
Suppose if we want to make it a range, Siddharth, how can we define that one?
same thing, you can basically give like df of last name or df dot amount greater than equal to this, then ampersand and then df dot amount less than equal to this. You can use and or everything, just like here you can see and we have used.
Okay.
So you can combine multiple the logical operators and or not, all things you can use here. Okay, so
So usually one more thing is when we are trying to filter out with the date filters, mostly we will go with the dates, right? So in this case, what would be here the data type of the one is the pandas, right? How we can read that one as a date here? Suppose say that I want to get some kind of data in between the couple of dates.
Yeah, date, that should be there is a date and time. There are two modules are there. These gives functions to convert your date in string into date and vice versa. Okay, I think this yeah, we can give it a try also. So basically you can read the data and you can typecast. Okay, just like in RDD you saw, like you were like having trade transaction data, you were reading that file, splitting through the delimiter, then converting the amount column from string to float. Exactly same thing holds true here also. You can do that. You can apply some function to each and every columns of a given data frame also. Okay, so that's also that you can convert the string to date and then you can apply date like functions. Say you want to derive a new column, say year, month, quarter, and all these things you can do. Okay, you can just take that as an assignment. So in the basics example, you have read this data, right? You have read this data, that is create transaction.csv. Okay, here you saw only amount was float and all are rest are basically object. So what you do, you just read that data and apply a filter on that data where date is greater than equal to some value. So for example, if you see this, so here you can see the dates are basically 3/4/2015, 3/9/2015, like that. So you apply a filter where month equal to say April. Okay, doesn't matter which year. So just apply a filter when month equal to 4. It's viewable, right? So you can basically do that also. So you can also do that. Okay, you can apply a filter. You can basically apply a filter on that. So everybody just give it a try. Okay, so it's basically, since we are learning Python, so just take it seriously. So basically we have to keep on adding different libraries in our profile. Okay, so for now, suppose you just learn few concepts of the core part, then you are learning a little bit about advanced, that is pandas data. I think it's the bare minimum, not advanced. Rather, if a person is saying like I have 5-6 years of experience into Python, PySpark and all, so for sure the expectation is that person must have used NumPy and NumPy and pandas data frame. Okay, and if you're showing 10+ years of experience, maybe some multi-threading modules like Celery or Dask. So those kind of things also you should use. Okay, so maybe one person can take some assignment, work on some examples and Dask. I didn't use it, but it's a very common thing people talk about. So maybe Chandra, Josita, you can take this as an assignment. You both just come up with at least 2 examples each from Dask. Okay, so what's the purpose of Dask and DASK Dask? Okay, so you can just search, create few examples around. Anybody has used Dask here in this group? No, I guess. Okay.
Task, TASK or
DASK.
DS.
Okay, just spend some time. Okay, get some few examples. It will be good for us all. So that's right. Like, you got my point, right? Here you can see the date is having this, and we have to apply a filter. So how you want to, so don't use yeah, so basically what I'm saying, don't just use string operations to get the substring that is 3rd and 4th index as the month and then apply that filter. Not like that. Rather, you have to apply some logic. Okay, you have to apply some logic to convert this date from string column to timestamp or date. Okay, so just check, like there is a apply function available in data frame. So you can use apply functions to convert this column from string type to date type. And then next you apply the filter, okay, where the month equal to April. With those kind of examples you can try. Okay, so okay, just try it. Okay, don't skip it, just try it. And yeah, as we just discussed, like you can embed multiple conditions through logical operators like and, or, and on. Okay, so here you can see df within square bracket. So you can see we have used this condition. Okay, we wrapped it inside parenthesis. Okay, so first parenthesis has the condition saying df of first name equal to Latis, and the second condition is df of last name equal to Reddy. Okay, so that's basically giving you all these records where first name equal to Latis and last name equal to Reddy. Okay, you can see it's giving only one record. Okay, Latis Reddy, and it's basically along with that it's giving the record index also. Okay, that is there. And so optionally, just like you're using df within square bracket, we are passing that condition. Here you can see df within square bracket, we are passing that Boolean expression, which results into a series of Boolean true false. Similarly, you can use df.loc function also. df.loc, and you can inside that loc you can pass this. Okay, both are 1 and 2 only, it's giving the same result. But optionally in the loc you can pass the column name also. In line number 22 and line number 20 are exactly same. Sorry, line number 22 and line number 17 are very much same. Like you are selecting all these rows where last name equal to Reddy in line number 17, and same thing you are doing in line number 22 also. df.loc within square bracket you have specified within square bracket you have specified the condition df of last name equal to Reddy. Okay, so basically that's also giving the same result, Latis and Sunit. Okay, and the last line number 24, you can see df.loc within square bracket. You have put some you have basically put everything inside parentheses. Inside that parenthesis, first you have given the Boolean expression that will return true or false, and the second you are basically giving columns. Okay, you can give a single column that is email, or you can give multiple columns within square bracket also. Okay, that's also there. So that's why you can see you are only getting the email of those people whose last name is Reddy. Okay, so these are the two email IDs you are getting. You can see the result is latis.pandey@dsm.com and sunitreddy@dsm.com. So these are the two email IDs for which you have the last name is Reddy. You can see the previous example. So here they have surnames as Reddy, and we got their respective email IDs. Okay, so just like you can select multiple columns also. Okay, you can select multiple columns also, not just one column. So here you can basically pass a list of columns. So you can see you are getting both the columns. There is no restriction. You can put anything. You can put same email also. Okay, it doesn't complain you. It will give you the email twice. Okay, so like that means. So you can basically, that's the second parameter in the LOC attribute, is basically list of columns. Okay, list of columns. First one is basically a Boolean expression, and the second part is basically one column or list of columns. Okay, so that's basically how you can apply filtering on a given data frame.
It's like the whole column, but columns also from a data perspective.
Okay. I'm not sure, like I think some mic issue or so. Some mic issue from your side, when actually I couldn't hear anything. Anybody heard what he was asking?
No, I'm sorry.
Fine. So Vinay, actually some mic problem. Maybe you can use a headphone or something. So that's basically how you can use filter condition. It's pretty much same like your SQL and standard SQL. You do use where condition to do a horizontal filtering. You have 100 records, 1000 records. You're only interested in a handful of records, so that you can do it through this condition. Okay, DF within square bracket. You can specify a Boolean expression that will return a series of Boolean values, and you can optionally use LOC also. df.loc within square bracket, you can specify the Boolean condition, and also df.loc takes the second parameter as the list of columns. Okay, all are available. Okay, just like same thing. Select start from employee where salary is greater than 1 lakh, or select employee ID, comma email ID from employee where salary greater than 1 lakh. Okay, so in the first instance, you are selecting all columns, and in the second instance, you are only selecting a handful of columns. Okay, so just like you compare in that way, you can remember it easily. Okay, that's the thing. So that's basically filtering. Then of course, like you should know about the aggregations, like how to basically calculate different matrices from this data. Okay, so I think we can quickly replace this. This path. Okay, so you just read the same create transaction data as a CSV, and it is complaining. No, it's not complaining. So you just read that data as a data frame, and then you say that transaction data frame within square bracket, you are selecting this column amount. Okay, just remember every time you are selecting one column, it's no more a data frame, it's a type series. Okay, so data frame is a collection of series. Each column is of type series called. Okay, so you have a data frame having 4 columns, means it's a collection of 4 series. Okay, if you select one series only, the data type will convert it to a series. But if you select more than one column, it's a data frame. This is obvious, right? So that's there. Like here you have selected df dot, so transaction df of amount, and then you call dot median. It will calculate the middle value. It will sort the data basis the amount column from ascending to descending, and it will give you the middle value. Okay, you have 49 records, so it will give you kind of 25th record as the middle value. Okay, like that. So that is there, and so that's there. You can call median on a medians, as the name suggests, is basically you should apply that on a numeric column. If you try it on any non-numeric column, it will not give you any result. It will fail. Okay, because it will not be able to calculate the median value. So optionally, you can suppose you are working with some data set and you are doing some initial analysis. Okay, it's a sales sheet having 20 columns, having multiple numeric columns, and you want to calculate the average and median of all numeric columns. So in that case, you can say that data frame dot median. Okay, it will do all this hard work for you. It will just iterate through all columns. It will check which columns are of type numeric. Then it will calculate the median value on that. Okay, that's basically it does. So first you said, first you just calculated print median of transaction amount. It printed 78.77. Then median transaction data columns. Okay, so you just call that data frame dot median. It's having only one column, that is amount, which is of type numeric. So it said amount this. If you have multiple columns, then you could like say amount 78.77, salary, say the median value, like that. It will just give you the list of all columns, all numeric columns, and the median values of that. Okay, that's there.
Then line number 8, what we have done. So we have sent that data frame dot describe. Okay, describe is again another handy function. So it basically describes the entire data frame. Okay, so okay, describe is basically it gives the description of the entire data frame. Description only works here for the numeric columns. Okay, because there only you can calculate some matrices. For string columns, what you'll get nothing. So maybe categorical column, you can find out the frequency of each of these things, but that it doesn't do. Rather, describe function here in line number 8 is returning this. Okay, it's saying amount is a numeric column and all these matrices count total 49 amounts are there because you have 49 records. The average mean is 176.92. Standard deviation is 563.15. Minimum 25th percentile, 50th percentile, 75th percentile, max, all this. So 50th percentile is nothing but the median value, what's the middle value. If it sort the database is the ascending order, it will give you the middle value. 25th percentile will give you the 25th. Suppose you have 10 records, what will the third record's value? Okay, what will the fifth record's value? What will the seventh record's value? So these are basically nothing but 25th percentile, 50th percentile, 75th percentile. Okay, I'm not going into the mathematical calculation, so I'm assuming everybody is aware, because in the semester at least you have seen like the scoring always percentile basis, right? So you see some people are get 10 points. Is it like they're scoring 100% mark? No, that's basically the maximum of all. You have 5 subjects, a person just scored maximum scores for all 5 subjects. So that becomes the 100%. So we say that person got 110 point. That person got 10 point, or his percentile is 100%. So like that. So similar funda here. Basically, you are arranging the data and basis that you are finding out, which is the 25th percentile, 50th percentile, 75th percentile, like that. Okay, that's there. That's basically the describe function. Describe function will give you the summary of all numeric columns with these attributes. Okay, count, mean, standard deviation, min, 25th, 50th, 75th, max, like that. Okay, and you have a function called value counts. Value counts is a function that is applicable to a single column only. So what it does, it basically, so you see like we have selected transaction data frame account number. Okay, this is a credit transaction data, credit card transaction data. So different account numbers and their transactions. Suppose we have 49 transactions. And if you remember in the RT examples, there were only 4 customers, 4 account numbers are there. So it's giving the frequency of occurrences of records having account number, all these values. Okay, you can see 4560 A 456. There are 14 records are there. Okay, and this account number having 14 records. This account number is having 12 records. This is having 9 records, like that. Okay, value count is a function that will give you the frequency of each of these column value. Okay, this column has 4 distinct values and it gives you the count of occurrences of each value. Okay, it's a very handy function. Then basically, and this is pretty much similar to your SQL query. Select count star from table name, group by account number. Right, so you get the count of records for each account number. Okay, so that's there, and post that what we have done here. Transaction data frame dot group by. Okay, transaction data frame dot group by account number. Okay, so it's create a grouped data frame. From that grouped data frame, you are selecting the amount column. Then you are calling dot ag, and you are saying I want to calculate both median and mean. Okay, so that means it's pretty much similar to the SQL query. You are saying select account number, comma, average of amount, comma, median of amount, group by, from table name, group by account number. Okay, this is how basically you apply aggregations. Data frame dot group by one column or multiple columns, you can say. Here I'm
grouping basis the account number. You may group by basis the account number, comma, month or year, like that. Then you are saying apply the aggregations on this column. Okay, so you are saying amount dot ag. These are the functions you are trying to calculate, median of amount and mean of amount. Optionally, suppose you have more columns, say salary, maybe interest rate. So you can specify all this list of columns, say amount, comma, XYZ, comma, ABC. You can specify multiple columns, then dot ag, multiple matrices, multiple functions. Okay, it will calculate all these functions on all these columns. Get me point? So here, if you see, it's basically account number wise. It's calculating a median and mean of amount. Okay, for all this customer ID, it's finding the median value is this, average is this. Means basically you want to find out, like, on an average, what is the total average transaction done by each of these customer. Okay, so some customers are doing on an average, say 1,000 rupees transactions every time they visit. Okay, some customers are spending 5,000 rupees for every visit. So these kind of analytics different retails do for their, to basically benchmarking their customers, which customer has potentiality of or spending capacity of each of these customers. Sometimes average is not the right metrics to be done, because like average has a lot of problem. For example, you have done 10 transactions. Okay, all are of 1,000 rupees, 9 are of 1,000 rupees, but one transaction you do only 10 rupees. So your average will be reduced a lot. But whereas we don't think so, if a person is coming every time he's spending 1,000 rupees, we should treat on an average that person is doing 1,000 rupees transaction. But unfortunately, if you just, that person has done one transaction with 10 rupees, and if you just calculate like 9,010 divided by 10, it'll give you some 900 rupees kind of, 910 rupees kind of. So that's why, like, average is not the very accurate metrics we do use to calculate the potentiality of a customer. Maybe median can be the right value. Median here, it will give you 1,000, because if you arrange the records in the ascending order or the descending order, so it will be 1,000, 9 times. At the end, it is 100. So if you take the middle value will be 1,000 only. Okay, so that's why like a median is a good metrics to calculate the potentiality of a given customer, isn't it? So these are a couple of points we need to remember while doing data analytics. So here in line of 14, we applied group by account number, and we calculate median and mean of amount. Okay, maybe median and mean of amount, comma, discount. Okay, so you also want to calculate the average discount or average or median discount that customer has always availed, right? Because all these stores run different campaigns, they do give different discounts. So on average, how much the company is spending to retain the customers by providing discounts. These are different KPIs or different matrices, different analytics team used to do, right? So that is there. And here also in the line number 16, you have done exactly same thing, but again, you just applied dot LOC and you have specified this value. So this is kind of having clause, not having clause, rather fair clause. So you're saying only give me the record where customer ID is 333 XYZ99. So here you saw for all customers, all 4 customers, the median and the mean value. And in the next result, you are getting only the result for customer ID 333 XYZ999. Okay, so having 71.30 and 104.09. Okay, this is a separate record you are getting only. Optionally, you would have like done it like dot filter and then you could have like done filter and then apply group by, or like both are same, both are doing the same thing. Because in the filter example, you saw you can use df within square bracket the filter condition, or df dot LOC inside that you can apply the filter condition. Here also you did the same thing. After you got the result, so this transaction dot group by account number, amount dot ag, median and amount, it creates a data frame. That data frame is having 3 columns. First one is account number, second one is median, third one is mean. Then you are saying LOC within square bracket, you have mentioned this. So you're saying only give me the records. So here you can see there is no index and all. So after you apply this aggregation line of 14, it's giving you the records in this way. So then you said LOC, this one. So it give you the values associated with this account number. Okay, like that. So these are a couple of points on the aggregation front. So you can apply aggregations on any columns and any type of aggregations here. Okay, so the last example is basically series. Series is pretty straightforward. So each column is called a series here. You just read that same people dictionary as a data frame. Okay, so here basically what you have done. So people within square bracket email. So that means you are selecting one key from that given dictionary, right? So that dictionary is email you are accessing. So you can say people dictionary key email, and you have it's giving you a list of values because against that email you have assigned this list of values. Okay, Rajesh Singh at DSM, Latis Pandey at DSM, Sunit Reddy at DSM, like that. Okay, and then we converted that to a data frame in line number 15. And here we said df of email. Okay, or you can say df.email, both are one and same only. And then you print it. Okay, then you print it, so it's printing in this way, 0, 1, 2, and the values of these three records. And then it's showing everything like which data type is. Then you mention the data type of that is type of df of email. It's saying series, pandas score series. It's not saying pandas score df data frame. It's series. Okay, so data frame is a collection of series. Each column is called a series there. And then what we are doing, so so here basically you're saying df within square bracket, you're mentioning list of 2 columns. Okay, last name, email. Okay, here basically you are saying df of last name and email. So that's how basically you are selecting 2 columns here. Okay, so then basically when you are saying type of this, it's no more a series because it's a combination of 2 series, and we know combination of series are called data frame, right? So that's why it's when you are selecting last name and email, it's printing these 2 values. Okay, last name and email, it's printing the values. And then what we are saying, when you are saying the data type, it's saying pandas core frame data frame. Okay, not series, rather it's frame data frame. Okay, because data frame is a collection of series. Then then of course, like you want to see the first record, since you can access the records through the index because it's a standalone data frame. So you can use iloc or loc, both these attributes of data frame, to access the rows. You can say iloc 0, it will give you the first row. iloc 0, that will also, sorry, df loc, that will also give you the first record. Okay, so first row, it's giving first name, last name, email, this first name, last name, email. Okay, so these are what we are getting for both. Okay, so then let's see what's the difference. So if you say iloc, and you can pass a list of 2 values, that means 2 index of rows, so it's giving 2 records. First 2 rows, it's printing in this way, 0 Rajesh Singh dsm.com, like that. It's printing 2 records if you're using iloc and you're passing a list of indexes. Then basically you can see you have enhanced it. You are mentioning 2 rows along with the column index. You are saying second column you want 0, 1, 2, means email column you want to get. Okay, that also you can do. So just say first and 2 rows, only third column. So you can see it's only printing the email part of these first two records. Okay, Rajesh Singh DSM and Latis Pandey DSM.com. Okay, iloc, you saw it takes a single column, sorry, index of a single record or index of multiple records. or index of multiple records, comma, index of column. Okay, like that. Only the difference is if you are using LOC function, you can also pass the column name. Okay, here just like you are specifying the index of a column, here you can pass the column name. That's the only difference. Otherwise, there is no difference. Okay, here you have passed LOC of email. Here basically you can see 0:1. That's available for ILOC also. Suppose you are saying 0 to 10, that means it will give you all columns from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 10. And then you are saying column email. Then here you are saying LOC of 0 and 1. Column also you have selected 2 columns, last name, email, like that. And this one value counts, we have seen it already. DF of email, it's a series. And then you are saying value count, it's giving the count of occurrences of each value. I think here everything is 1, 1, 1. Yeah. Or if you say df.last name, maybe you may get ready twice and sing once, like that. Okay, these are a couple of handy functions. Okay, these are a couple of handy functions we can see. To sing ready Pandey. I think here you have created a different sing ready Pandey, not like sing ready like that. Okay, so this is how basically you can play around with 2-dimensional data using pandas data frame. Okay, so you remember this assignment, like we have to use apply function on data frame to convert the transaction date from string to date type, and then filter where date equal to where month equal to 4. That's April month. Okay, so that's all for today. So with that, we are finishing up with Python, and next session onwards we'll be starting with Spark data frame, which is super important. That will be our bread and butter when you are working on big data projects. We don't use RDDs, we always use data frames. So next 10 sessions, if you're missing one, means you yourself will drop off. You will not be able to go for any interviews because like they will be asking you project questions, and these are all data frame basis only. In fact, the project description we have to explain in terms of data frames. Okay, so these are super important. Okay, so once you, even though you crack an interview, if you don't know data frame, then you won't be able to work independently. You have to always ask somebody, and you'll be always in that fear somebody is judging you. Okay, so data frame is very, very important. Okay, in the projects we always use data frame, so we should be master in data frame. We should know each and every concepts, like how to read data as data frames, how to apply transformations on different columns or multiple, one column at a time, multiple columns, aggregations, window analytics functions, everything. Okay, so yeah, as I mentioned, like everybody just register to AWS account. Don't expect like I will be helping you through creating an account. It's pretty straightforward, just like you're registering to Facebook or LinkedIn. Okay, only that it will ask for the payment information you have to provide. Okay, so you may not get any bill, but optionally you may get a bill of 100 rupees or 200 rupees a month. Okay, if you carefully use the services. Okay, so that's all for today, and we'll again connect on Saturday. Okay, Saturday.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So Spark, now we are going to set up Spark in AWS, right? And not use the Spark Community Edition anymore.
Correct. We will be going forward. We will be using PyCharm to write our data frame code, and we will be executing it on AWS EMR cluster. So every day, every session will come and will first create a EMR cluster, and then we'll run the code there. Okay. So
do we need to download the AWS SDK on our system? Is that required?
no, not required. Nothing required.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Just register there.
Okay.
So,
I have a
Siddharth,
free tier account, so there.
Yeah, free tier account. We should create all.
okay. Siddharth, I have a small question. So when you say Saturday, it's Saturday morning.
Yeah, Saturday morning. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So thanks everybody. Then we'll again connect Saturday. Just work on those assignments, and we'll start with the data frame part.
Okay.
Cool then. Thanks everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.